Luminar NEO is finally out. I'm gonna walk you through all the cool artificial intelligence features included in this version and how well they work. I'm gonna show you how far can you take a picture inside Luminar NEO. But mainly I'm gonna tell you what I like about the software and what I don't, which features I think are really missing and which ones are promised in future updates. How much it costs, who's it for, and if it's worth it. Yeah, I'm Henry, and in this channel I help with the tech tools to be creative. And today we're talking about a very powerful artificial intelligence-based photo editing software called Luminar NEO. And this is the review of the official release version on 17th of February of 2022. And as I told you guys in the intro, we're gonna cover a lot of stuff in a totally honest and open way. I'm gonna show you the goods and the bads of this software for you to be able to decide if it's for you or not. Just a quick disclaimer, Skylum allowed me to use the software before the final release, so I've been testing it for a week extensively, using with many different kinds of pictures to be able to prepare some material and make this video for you guys. Skylum does not get to see this video before it's published, so every opinion you see here, it's totally my own, and you're gonna understand why right now when we walk you through all the features that are included in this software, the things that I really liked and the ones that I really don't like, and what can you expect from it in future updates. So let's do it. Alright, so here we are inside Luminar NEO. We're gonna do a quick tour around the software for you to see how it's established. And right after, we're gonna go through each tool individually for you to see how they work and how well they work. So first of all, this is the catalog part in which you're just going to add your images. You can just go to add photos, choose the folder, and it's going to import them over here. I tried many different types of files, raw files from Canon, from Sony, no problem at all over there. JPEG files, TIFF files, DNG from DJI drones, not an issue. So I don't think file compatibility is a problem at all. So you just see all the images here and the metadata appears here on the bottom left of the screen. Then now we're just gonna choose one picture, this one over here, that I think represents perfectly what I would use NEO for, meaning that this is a very well exposed picture of an impressive place, but that looks very flat because of the time of the day, the sky, and also because it hasn't been developed yet, it's still the raw file. So let's just go to the edit tab over here and you're gonna see that all the tools appear here on the right and they are divided into 4 different categories. The first one is the essentials. Now I'm gonna go really quickly through the essentials panel because this is not an editing tutorial, so I don't wanna explain to you exactly what each tool does. I just wanna show you what the software has to offer. But very soon I'm gonna do a complete edit on an image, probably this one actually. So if you see a card over here, it's because it's ready and you can check it out later if you want. First you have the essentials where you have develop, in which you've got all the exposures, contrast, sharpening, optics, noise reduction, all these tools are over here. You've got Enhance AI that is just going to figure out what the picture is about and try to improve the contrast, the saturation, is going to try to improve the sky for you, automatically with one slider. Erase to allow you to delete something from the image. But actually inside here we have 2 of the AI tools that are brand new, which is remove power lines and remove dust spots. So we're gonna come back here in a while. Structure AI is going to tweak a little bit your sharpness or micro contrast. Color, you're gonna have all the controls about hue, luminance, saturation, which is amazing. You don't have this in all the free softwares. You can transform this image to black and white if you want and just tweak everything on it. On details, you have a very interesting option here to tweak small, medium, and large details, so they did it really well. Denoise, there's luminosity and also color denoising, which is a very smart move. Landscape has the dehaze slider, which is gonna help with fog, and also a golden hour slider that is here just ready to make the image pop like golden hour really. Okay, so let's dig into the creative part over here so that you can see some of the artificial intelligence features that they added into NEO. And the first one is the Relight AI that really impressed me actually in this software. So you have 3 sliders mainly, brightness near, far, and depth. And I'm just going to exaggerate for you to see what's going on over here. I'm going to put brightness far really down. And as you can see now that there's a line more or less drawn in the lower part over here. And if I just slide depth around, it's just going to control where that line is going to be separating near and far. And this means that you can totally control what's gonna happen between your subject and all the other parts of the image. So for example, if I just want to make what's near a little bit darker and call a little bit less attention, and just have what's on the background or the main subject of my image pop a little bit more, I can do like this. And I can control the depth for us to see until where is it going to be dark and where it's going to be a little bit brighter. And one interesting thing about this is that when you begin to progress the depth, let's just go here for example, you can see that it goes much slower, like we're in the middle of the slider over here, when it's flat, and it just takes all the way up here to get until the end. But instead, when we're close to the mountain, we're almost at 80% here, and then it just completes over the mountain. And this is because it's understanding that they are more or less on the same plane, and then it just covers that part quicker than it advances when it's on the flat ground over here. So it's kind of like doing a 3D mapping of the image, which is really interesting. Let's just go really quickly to the portrait we're going to use later on in the portrait part for you to see what it can do. So as you can see here, the model is really backlit, and applying Relight AI, we can just make her pop much more from the background than it was before. And I can still tweak it a little bit more, make her even brighter, but you have to fine tune it until a point where it doesn't look fake. But anyway, with this one, you can see how well it's actually masking out the model and brightening only her and the ground really close to her here. Now, hair is always a problem for the masking, but if you keep it to a limit, it still looks very natural. But this is so much easier than in other softwares having to mask her out completely and then doing some kind of luminance selecting for her to be brightened up. So this is so much easier. Okay, let's go back to our image. And next up, we have the Sky AI that divides a lot of photographers between what is fair and what is not. But let's just go try it, and I'm just going to choose one random sky over here, and you're gonna see that it masks perfectly around the mountains. But this was a very easy sky to select, so you don't have to fine-tune anything. It's so easy, this one. Still, you have many controls to make it as perfect as possible. Like for example, moving it horizontally or vertically, you can flip it around. You have some mask refinements here where you have a global slider that is just going to try to understand where the edges are and close them for you. Relight strength is really strong, especially if you choose something a bit more dramatic. So let me change this over here. Like now, one of the things that immediately tells that an image has been altered is if the light doesn't match. Like for example, the sunlight comes from one side and you have luminosity also on the other side, or if the colors don't match. So like for example, if you just choose something a little bit more extreme, like choosing a starry night background here, but actually we have sun on the mountains, it just doesn't make any sense. But the scene relighting is really powerful on this one. So if you just use this slider and go over, you can actually have a much more realistic lighting on your shot. It's still gonna take some work to make it look really good. And what I found was that with Luminar NEO, if you do something that it's a little bit too extreme, like in this case, for example, it just doesn't work that well. But if you go kinda halfway, so if you just add something like a little bit later sky, for example, and you use the relight strength, look the difference it makes. The light looks a little bit softer and it just matches much better than before. But anyways, it just looks so much more interesting now than it was before. Now, as I said, in some cases it just doesn't work really well. Like for example, in this image over here, in which the mountains were really messed up with the background. And it's really hard on Neo for you to fine tune the masking because there aren't many tools about it. So you just have to paint over where is the sky and let it blend. So you can't count that it's gonna work every single time, but most of the time it does a pretty good job. Oh, I almost forgot. There's one more feature about this that I didn't show you, which is actually that the Sky AI considers also the reflection on lakes or whatever kind of water. So in this image here, for example, if I just switch up the sky to something like this, see how cool that it adds also the sky into the reflection of the lake. Of course, this still needs to be developed, the contrast is all messed up and everything, but it's so cool to see that it added also the reflection of every single cloud down here. I just found one problem with this, in which I still see some of the reflection of the original clouds also. And in this case, there was a very characteristic one just crossing the top of the mountain over there, so you can really see that it stayed over there, it just didn't delete it and replaced it. So it's not gonna work 100% of the time, but it takes you very close. Okay, back to our image, let's just go to Atmosphere AI, in which you're gonna have controls about fog, layered fog, mist, haze, all this kind of stuff. And you can just add it on top of the image and it can make it look so much more interesting than it was before also. You can control the depth, the lightness. So these special effects layered on top of the images are really cool to give them a pop. Now you can add also sun rays to the image. You can make it look more dramatic. In the mood panel, you can actually use one of the LUTs included over here, or you can load your custom LUT. Toning is kind of like the color grading on Neo, where you can add some color to the shadows and to the highlights. You can add some matte, you can add a mystical vibe to the image. Glow is really cool because it allows you to set not only a soft focus, but also do an ortho effect without having to deal with Photoshop or anything like that. You just slide it over and it's just going to slightly defocus some parts of the image, for which you also have control about the softness, brightness, and you can always tweak the masking by using the tools associated with that is present in most of the panels over here. And film grain is just going to add some grain to the image to add some texture. Okay, now you're gonna notice that if I come back to any of the other tabs over here, like for example the sky, you're gonna see that everything is set to 0 again. So where are the changes? They have all been moved inside the edits tab over here, and you're gonna see that I have them all stacked one after the other in the order that we applied it. And if you just want to change something that you did before, you just have to search it over here. So let's see, for example, the sky AI. And if you just want to change something, like for example, you want to reflip the sky to the other way, you just come here, you change it there, and it's done. Now, to like this approach is really going to depend on your workflow. And why is that? Because now, for example, let's say you want to add a little bit more contrast to the image, or maybe lower the highlights. So you have two options. You can either come again to develop and then lower the highlights a little bit, and then it's going to stack a second develop module inside the edits history, and you're gonna see one over here and the first one that you applied. But the problem here is you cannot rename these. So after a while, if you just start stacking develop modules one over the other, for example, you won't know where you changed each thing. So you're gonna have to be hunting around to see where that fix was and what is causing the difference in the image that you don't like anymore. Now, the second thing you're gonna notice, and that requires some getting used to, that I personally didn't like too much, is that when you have to change something that you did in the beginning of the edit, like for example in this case, let's say I want to go back to the Relight AI. The moment that I click on it in the history, it's actually showing me the image at that point. So either I have to add it over here without seeing how it's gonna look in the final image, so tweak it here, go back to the tools, and then see how it looks in the end properly. Let me just change here for you to see that I can actually tweak it, and then when I go back to tools, it actually applies everything over again. Or the second option that I have for some tools is to stack a second version of them. So let's say, for example, I want to tweak the highlights once more. So instead of just going to the edits, find the develop raw that is in the bottom of everything, I could just go to tools and go to develop and then tweak it everything over here. And this is what I'm seeing most of people saying. But what I found out is that the effect of this is not the same as tweaking it in the history. Let me show you an example. So let's edit this picture really quickly. I'm just gonna go to an extreme. I'm gonna get the develop here and I'm gonna push all the way up the exposure. Okay, so now it's completely blown out and the develop raw is already here on the edits tab. And if I just tweak it back to normal, it just comes back to normal, no problem at all. So let's say that it is now deep into the edit and I just want to tweak the luminosity a little bit more. Instead of going to the edits, I'm just going to the develop again. And as you can see now, everything is set to 0. So if I just pull it down, it is going to bring down the exposure, but take a look at the details over here. Okay, let's abandon this image for a while for me to show you two of the long-awaited features of this program, which are the power lines and the dust removal. And I have to say that both of them impressed me a lot positively. Let me show you power lines first. So to use it, you just have to choose your picture, come up to erase and click remove power lines. And AI is gonna do its best to delete all the power lines it sees on the image. And more often than not, it's not gonna be 100% perfect, but so damn close. So like here, for example, it removed almost all the power lines, leaving just a small piece over here that then you can just select and then go over to erase, and it's just going to clean that part. And for me, this one was absolutely perfect. Whatever else you see that you want to change, you can just go with the cursor and then just paint over and select erase for it to try to complete it for you. Now, in other more complicated situations like this one, for example, it's not 100% perfect, but you're gonna see what it does. So all the main ones over here were deleted, but there are still some shadows over here and also up here on this dome also. But that's the thing, AI is not gonna do 100% of the job for you and perfectly, but it's gonna get you to a point that it's already going to save you so much time. So I'm quite happy with this tool, and I can totally see myself using this tool either directly inside Luminar or using the plugin that is available for Lightroom and Photoshop. So before even beginning to edit a picture, already taking it inside NEO, removing power lines, removing dust, and then going back to edit. Now the second tool, and this one is gonna save you so much time, is the one that removes dust spots. And as you can see this image over here, I had a lot of wind that day and a lens exchange ruined my image. But if you just come up here to erase again and remove dust spots, just wait it for a little bit, and what would be probably, I don't know, maybe 5 to 10 minutes work removing every single dust spot on this image becomes just one click and about 30 seconds for all of them to disappear. And voila, all of the dust spots on the sky and also the ones that were above the sea were removed, and it's not 100% perfect. You can see some small details that are still left behind, but it's so minor that just painting over these details in a couple of seconds is going to fix this image. But about this too, I have nothing but compliments to do. Now the portrait section is another one that I really enjoyed using inside NEO. As soon as you choose any of the tools around here, you can position the mouse over the image and you're gonna see what it masked as being the subject of the image. And then you can change the bokeh on the background, meaning if you want a little bit more of out of focus area or more in focus, you can change the size. And you have also controls over the face in which you can change the lighting. If you're a little bit chubbier or a little bit thinner, you can change also the eyes, like widening them up a little bit for you to look a little bit more rested. You can remove dark circles around the eyes. You can enlarge the eyes, but I don't think I would do that in my case. You can add some saturation to the lips or less, and you can also widen the teeth. And I found that the masking for all of these things was really accurate, so it's really well implemented into the software. The skin AI also was really interesting because it adds an amount of skin softening that doesn't make it look that fake. Of course, you cannot exaggerate, but it's a very good implementation. And in this case, for example, I had the light from the window and the softbox, and actually removing some shine from my face also looked pretty good. Skin defects removal takes away some spots from your face, and I found out that it does a pretty good job. It's a very subtle one and didn't remove things that are natural signs. Of course, it's trying to guess which is which. That's why you have the masking tool, so you can avoid some stuff. For body AI, we're gonna go back to this image that we used also to show you the relighting. And with body AI, you can change the shape of the person, making it go chubbier or making it go thinner. But just pay attention that it's not going to complete the area around the person. So it's just going to distort all the world around it. So you cannot make very strong changes, but some things, yeah, you definitely could, and it's not that noticeable. But I would definitely take it easy with this one. Now, last but not least, we have the professional tab down here in which we can control the super contrast, meaning separate controls for highlights, midtones and shadows. We can be really useful in some situations, like in a very high dynamic range scene like this. And we got also the color harmony tab that has something really interesting, this color balance part in which you can also control the colors by shadows, midtones and highlights. And this way you can insert a little bit of cyan just in the shadows. You can control it also going by a little bit bluer or more warm. And this is very similar to what you could do with the curves, but in a slider fashion that for some people is going to be much easier. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about user experience. I'm going to export 5 of these images that we authored here today. And let's see how long it takes for us to export all these 5 files. Okay, so it finished and it took about 1 minute 40 to export all 5 images. Meaning it takes about 20 seconds to export each image, which is not much if you just have a handful of images like I do here. But as I'm going to mention later, if you're doing batch image editing, this can really add up. And if you compare it to other softwares like Lightroom, for example, that I did in this video over here, you're gonna see the massive difference in export times. Now, when I'm editing single images like this, the export time is not gonna change too much for me because being 5 or 20 seconds is not gonna matter much, and I can be doing something else in the meantime. But what I'm really interested in is how well the software performs while I'm editing. How fast can I see the changes that I'm applying in real time? And Luminar actually is a bit on the slower side, in which you're gonna take a couple of seconds to see every changes that you make if you have a high-end computer like this, and some of the most advanced features can take quite a while, between 5 to 10 seconds for you to be able to see what's happening. So you do need to have a little bit of patience, and you need to have a good computer to keep up with the pace that you're used to. Now, I do have to be fair and say that between the early access versions and the final version of NEO, it's getting better, and it's going to get better with time. You just cannot expect changes to be made in real time. Now let's quickly see the 2 last features of NEO that I haven't showed you yet. And the first one is the preset, in which you can just pick something that kind of matches the image that you have. So let's see, for example, here I'm just gonna choose sunset, dream film, and it applies a preset all over the image, and you can dial it down or back up again as much as you like. And if you go back to edits, you're gonna see that it's here and it deletes all the other edits that you have done before, meaning that this has to be the first thing that you do before editing an image. And later on, if you want to dial it down or back up again, you can always have access here to the amount slider and you can still change it. And the final one is that now you have implemented layers over here. So one layer is obviously your image already. And by clicking the plus sign, you're going to be able to add flares, light leaks, stardust bokeh, or sparklers that are already included inside NEO. So if you just click any of them, it's going to be added on top of the image as a layer over here. And on the right, on the tools panel, you're going to be able to edit the layer properties by dialing down the opacity and also changing the blending mode from screen to lighten or whatever you prefer. And you can also flip it around. Now, this is something that I was really pleased to see that it's already included inside NEO, and I'm definitely going to use this one. Now, only one thing that I didn't like was that when I tried to include my own PNGs, my transparent PNGs, it didn't work quite well, because when I add it on the image, it's just going to edit just like with the same proportion as the image itself. And when I try to redimension, it's not keeping the proportion right. Besides, also including this white background on an image that actually had a transparent background. So I don't know what's going on over here, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna fix this in the next updates, but you cannot count on it as of now. So if it doesn't work, you can just come up to here, right click and say remove layer, and you're good to go. Okay, so I think this sums up all the important features about NEO. Let's go to the conclusion. Hi, just a quick interruption. While editing this video, I noticed an update to the Luminar Share app. So I'm just going to explain to you again what is it, what it does, and the new function that was just added to it. So first of all, Luminar Share is an app for your phone that allows you to connect your smartphone with your app on the computer. And to use it, it's enough for you to come inside Luminar NEO, just go to File, Share, Luminar Share, and it's going to generate a QR code on the screen that you can scan with the app. I'm just gonna do it right now. It says connected, and now you can send pictures from the phone to the computer, from the computer to the phone, and you can also mirror whatever is being done on the screen in here. So if I just change something like the exposure, for example, here, you're gonna be able to see immediately on the smartphone the same changes. Now, I'll just go back and I'm just going to send any kind of picture here to Luminar NEO, like for example, this one. I'm just gonna click send to Luminar NEO, it's sent. And if I come back to the catalog inside the Luminar Share folder, I'm gonna be able to see the same image over there. It was almost instantaneous. And if I come back to my images here, and I just pick, let me choose another one, like this one here, for example. If I just go to Luminar NEO, File, Share, Luminar Share, it's going to do the opposite. It's going to send this image directly into my gallery on the phone. It can take some seconds because it's actually exporting the raw image into a JPEG and then sending it over to the phone. I noticed that the final file size is not exactly the same as the resolution of the original one. So if you're planning to print what's on your smartphone, I totally recommend you to actually send it over using Dropbox Drive or something like that. See, the file is already over here. You can visualize it, you can share, and you can delete it also. Super quick and super practical. All right, so to sum it up, who's it for? I think if you're on free software right now, going to NEO is definitely a step up, as you have not only the artificial intelligence tools, but also all the basic components it's got. It's a very good collection of tools that sometimes you find some in a free software, some in another, but none with all of it. And also, if you're looking to upgrade without having to pay for a subscription, that's a very good option also. Now, if you're working professionally and you need the fine-tuned controls that, for example, Capture One or maybe Lightroom and Photoshop can offer you, then NEO is not for you. It has some fine-tuning and some masking tools, but it's not the same. Also, I don't recommend NEO for those shooting events, for example, in which you have to deliver 300 files the next day. I believe it's a very good software for you to edit one-of-a-kind shots that you want to make more magical. And also some tools like HDR, panorama, and tethering are not included in the roadmap for NEO. So if you really need one of these functions, you have either to use some complementary software or you're gonna need something else. Okay, so do I think it's worth it or not? So right now, for the launch price, NEO already packs a lot of value, not only with the basic tools, but also because it's got almost always an associated tool that does something smarter, like smart contrast, all the sky enhancing, the dust spots. The portrait tools are really cool, the Relight was awesome, but we have to consider that there are still some bugs to solve and that some tools are promised, but we don't know the release date yet. And also we have to consider that if you get Lightroom for a year, you're gonna be paying about 150 euro or dollars, and if you get Capture One, even more, like around 213, 215. So I think my advice here would be, if you don't work with it professionally, and the problems that I showed you in the video today do not affect too much your workflow, then NEO is a very good value buy. And it's gonna be even better when these bugs are solved and the new tools are added to the software. And if by now you decided that this is not for you right now, check out this playlist where I show you many other editing software options, and maybe you're gonna find something that suits your workflow. Otherwise, subscribe to the channel so that you can see the updated videos about NEO and you can know when all of the features are working and what I think about it the same way that you saw here today. So thanks a lot for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you have any comments or questions about NEO or editing softwares, just pop them in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao! Hey, thanks once again for watching, and if you're interested in photo editing, check out this video over here. It's YouTube's recommendation especially for you. I don't know what it is, but it's probably something interesting. I'll see you over there. Ciao!